Hey, Mr. Rogers, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
You busy?
No, not really.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to catch up with you, man, and continue with this Naoya Inoue and Fulton conversation. I sent you a couple things, and I've been in the lab doing some homework, man. So
yeah, I saw what you sent me.
Yeah, so one thing is, I guess I don't know if it's being over here in the States, but I can't say it's a disrespect, but I would say that it's a undermining of Naoya, and what he's able to do. Because basically the article that I sent you, the premise on that was, yeah, it gave Fulton his praises, it gave Inoue his praises, but it also said that Naoya hasn't fought elite competition, and I don't know, because you've been a fan longer than me, but I'm trying to get a gauge on you, because I did some research on the numbers, but I wanted to get a gauge on you on how you felt about, the consensus is that he hasn't faced the elites to get where he's gotten.
Another thing too, you have to look at, if the commentator is a pro Inoue or pro Fulton, okay? Now, equally, I can say, who has Fulton fought that has the criteria and the background and the record that Inoue has? When you talk about those type things, those things that's a two-way street.
Right.
When you look at accomplishments, okay, Naoya Inoue's accomplishments are much greater than Fulton's. Okay? The number of titles that he's won, the different weight classes that he's moved up and he's won these in, compared to Fulton, his reputation is far greater. And you have to look at Fulton's competition and what he was able to do with the competition that he had. When you look at his knockout record, his knockout percentage, even though there are those that want to criticize Inoue, but Fulton doesn't have the repertoire that Inoue has, nor does the boxing world put Fulton in the same category as Inoue. If Fulton is able to come away with a victory, he may make the pound for pound list, okay? He might make it. So regardless to what individuals say, the accomplishments that Inoue has achieved is far greater than that of Fulton. And you have to also look at this, the total spectrum of everything. Inoue is moving up because he aspired to fight greater competition. Okay? That's why he wants to move up and fight Fulton. He wants greater competition. And for any fighter today that's willing to do that, I think they deserve a lot of credit. But you can't tear this man down, because regardless, he's a future boxing Hall of Famer. I don't know if that's going to be true with Fulton. We have to just wait and see. But the accomplishments that Inoue has already made pretty much guarantees him a spot as one of the best boxers of this particular era. So for those that want to criticize Inoue, they're just looking at it with blinders on. They're not looking at it from the total perspective of all accomplishments. They're just looking at it one way with blinders on.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that you say that, because I was listening to a lot of the conversation, because I'm like, okay, where do we go? We went over our picks, you know. I was like, well, it's time to do a deeper dive. And when I was listening to a lot of the conversation, I was like, well, is this a skew? Because one of it is the little guys. You know, traditionally the little guys over here, they believe that the heavyweight, you know, so as the heavyweight goes, so as the rest of the boxing world. So at a certain point in time, under a certain weight class, they undermine the skills, and they don't really pay attention to the smaller guys. So that's one thing I was looking at. I was like, okay, well, part of it's a bias because people don't particularly look into the smaller guys. So I took that in consideration. But what I kept thinking about was, if you're gonna discredit Inoue in a competition that he's fought, you're gonna do Fulton no justice if he is to beat Inoue. Because, you know, these same people, we're gonna have our ears to the street, and we're gonna watch these same people. If Fulton is able to go away with this victory, these same people are going to blow it up. So that's why I'm real cautious sometimes on how I talk about people in the level of competition that they fight, because unless you do your homework, you're gonna sound kind of silly if your fighter loses, or when your fighter wins and you try to bolster it up. Then, you know, it's like, you know, hindsight is 2020. But just to give you a description of what I'm talking about, Fulton is 21-0. He got 8 KOs. He has the WBC and the WBO super bantam. He's 5'6.5" with a 70.5 inch arm reach. He's known for having faced Daniel Roman, Brandon Figueroa, Angelo Leo, Arnold Kagai, and Isaac Avalar. Out of all those guys, he was able to KO one guy. Naoya Inoue, 24-0, 21 knockouts. He was undisputed at bantam, moving up to super. He's 5'5", and he has a 67.5 inch reach. So, Fulton has a 3-inch arm reach and a 1-inch height reach. I sent you the article about the sizes that he actually, sent you the article about, his size, his walk around weight. Because, you know, I had, in one of the videos I had put out there, I said, if you know anything about his walk around rate, you know, chime in, and people have been chiming in. But the people on his resume, he has Paul Butler, Nonito Donaire, Jason Maloney, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Nonito Donaire again, Juan Carlos Payano, and Jamie McDonald had the regular belt when he was down there. But he has his KO percentage, he's 21 out of 24. Much higher KO percentage rate. And that speaks to the fact that even though knockouts aren't everything, it speaks to the fact that once he understands where you at and what you're doing, he elevates his game, and he pretty much stops the contest. He gets you out of there. And I'm thinking that has to be considered. But okay, let me do a deeper dive. So I got to looking at some numbers. I got to looking at, you know, average punches thrown per round, average jabs thrown per round, average, you know, the opponent's connect percentage, the opponent's power punch connect percentage rate. And Naoya Inoue, one of the reasons why he's number one is because of his numbers. And the numbers don't lie. Now, we have channels that'll talk all day about how he's a hype job and how, you know, he's overrated and you know, this and that. Like people just, you know, infatuated with the foreign, whatever. But inside the numbers, he's up there. And the reason why they have him number one is because he's number one in punches landed per round. So he's number one in punches landed per round. He's number two in the plus and minus, meaning he's number two in you landing versus your opponent's landing. He's number two. So in the give and take, he's number two. And he's number two in connect percentages, meaning that the percentage in which he connects, he's number two. And I'm talking about these are the top, the people that they have in the pound for pound. He's number two in jabs landed, which we understand is the most pivotal punch. It's the, you know, the jab. He's number two in that. And he's number two in power punches landed. That's why he's number one. So with that skill set and you being able to do that, that's what dictates why he's able to get his opponents out there, why he's so effective and efficient. The numbers don't lie. When we're talking about, he's in numbers right here. So Shakur's in, he's right up under him, because we're talking about defensive fighters, right? So, and Dimitri Bivol, as far as, you know, in the defensive round. But those speak to some of the numbers that dictate why he's so efficient. And he's in the ranks as far as these numbers with the Errol Spence, the Usyk, Beterbiev, Bivol, Terrence Crawford, Canelo. He's up there. So that's where he ranks at with these numbers, to include Shakur Stevenson. That's why he is the guy that he is. That's why he is the monster. Now, when I was looking at a lot of these different categories, because it's, you know, it's a lot of little categories, Stephen Fulton wasn't in any of them. And when I looked at it,
I say right. You're correct.
I'm talking about in the numbers, in these categories. In these number categories, he was not in the top 10 in any of these categories. I'm not just talking about the top 10 pound for pounds, because what I did was I went and looked at the Compubox stats in general, as far as like all the boxers. And then at the end, I went and looked at the ones where they specified as the top 10. Stephen Fulton was not in any of those categories. And a lot of the boxers that a lot of people see and appeal to the eye, they're not in there. You know, I looked at a stat like this that let me know, and this is why I know I'm on to something with my guy Tank. One of the things that stuck out to me, because people undermine him and what he got going on, but people don't like to look at the numbers. Tank is number one in the fewest punches, in the average fewest punches thrown. Think about this. He's number one in the average fewest punches thrown, but he's number one in connect and power punch connect percentage, meaning that he don't throw it that much, but when he do, he's the most accurate. See, these are numbers that can't be denied, and that's what translates into why you see them get the knockout. These are not knockout artists. These guys are master boxers who have mastered their craft. And when they go up against the other quote-unquote elites, when it's mano a mano, this is why they actually get the job done. The numbers don't lie. What do you think about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. And for anybody who would say that Naoya Inoue, okay, does not live up to the status that they put him in, they're just being biased. He's not overrated. He's being rated based on his performances and what he has accomplished in the ring. By no means necessary is he overrated. Even if he was to go into this fight and lose to Fulton, okay, you have to look at where this man came from, 108 pounds, going into a third division and fighting. He's not overrated. And I had made a comment one time before that as fighters keep moving up and the competition gets tougher and tougher and tougher, and they keep moving up and keep moving up, eventually one day they might run into a fighter that gives them all the trouble in the world. But it's because they've been on such a journey and fighting in that professional ranking and moving up from weight class to weight class, fighting the best people. one day you may suffer from some battle fatigue, okay? That's normal. But if you was to lose a fight, it doesn't diminish or take away what you were able to accomplish in the ring. So individuals that look at Inoue and proclaim that he's overrated, they're not looking at his career, they're not looking at his accomplishments, they're not looking at the fighters that he fought. In order to be where he's at, he had to fight a lot of champions in order to be champion. So therefore, he fought the best he could possibly fight. Now, with this fight coming up with Fulton, this will be a test for Fulton, even though he's the bigger man and he's defending his title. But this is going to be a battle for him. He's going to have to prove that he's better than Inoue. The only thing I can say right now that separates Inoue and Fulton is that Fulton's just been fighting at a weight class above him for right now. He's just a little bigger. He's not more skillful. He doesn't have the knockout percentage. And like you mentioned about a lot of Compubox stats, he doesn't even register on the stats. So the only thing coming into this fight that gives him an advantage is just his weight size. And that doesn't make you a better fighter than another fighter. It just means you only been fighting at a weight class higher. That's all it means. And that's the way I look at it.
Right, and that's what the article spoke to what you said, as far as, you know, it gave a hint that, you know, moving up, as you move up, that at some point Naoya is going to hit his ceiling. And it also said that Stephen Fulton is going in it with the mindset that his size and talent is going to be the key factors. But, you know, I've been trying to harp on this, and I was saying I hope that Fulton and his people actually listen to this. These guys cannot bank on size. These guys cannot bank on size as being the main factor, because I don't think he's going to fight. He's not going to fight Inoue in a manner to which his size will actually be a factor. The only way we're really going to know that it's a factor is because maybe his punch resistance might be a little bit more, he might have a more higher punch resistance, being that having fought at that higher rates and having fought some bigger guys. But his style doesn't lend itself. He's not a boxer that's going to impose his size. And again, we talked about this before. When you're dealing with these shorter guys, like I spoke about last time, you only have a 1-inch height advantage and you have a 3-inch reach advantage. So that means that size-wise, you don't have it's not that big of a difference in size to where you can really use size to your advantage in a fight with Inoue. And we talked about as far as the numbers go, the hit and not get hit, which a lot of people like to say, because when you talk about knockouts, people say, oh man, that's not all it is to the sweet science. It's just like, no, that's not all there is. But when you're a master at your craft, and you're superior in your technique, the knockouts tend to happen when all things are even, or when you don't have anything to where you can't take away what I do best and then still do what you do best, like a la Bill Belichick. You don't have that. So if you can't do that and your opponent can, more than likely he's going to get a stoppage, a TKO, or, you know, you're going to say you're going to quit in the corner, or he's going to end the contest. So that was my warning to Fulton and them. It's like, do not be fooled, and do not just bank on the size, because you don't know. And now we know that he's been walking around, out of his own words, out of the other interview I sent you, out of his own words, he walks around heavier than what we thought he would naturally walk around with. So the cut, he's not going to be cutting as much this time in this fight. He's in his hometown, Yokohama, and pretty much he has everything at his feet now. We talked about the pressure of him being at home you know, in the expectations, because, you know, I know it's high expectations for him being home, but I believe that Fulton is going to have to pull out something that we have not seen him yet to do. Because let me tell you this, when I was looking at these stats, and I was looking at, because sometimes, you know, I have to look at the good and the bad. When I was looking at these stats, part of the stats is your opponents landing on you. Like, you know, average opponents average jabs landed on you by your opponent, you know, average actual punches, total punches, power punches. And when we saw Fulton go up against Brandon Figueroa, this guy was #1 in opponents landing on him. I said, see, these kind of things actually lend themselves to the whole story or the bigger picture when you look at things like that. That's why a lot of people, they don't do triangulation, like where they look at, you know, common opponents and things that happen. And yes, styles make fights, but they can also tell a story, because he fought a guy in his last fight that gets landed on the most. I mean, he was #1, Figueroa was. Now, he doesn't have a higher output, but he's #1 in getting hit. To me, that says, hey man, this guy's #1 at getting hit. You didn't win that fight unanimously. These are things that, you know what I'm saying, this is the one that's gonna make you do a couple extra push-ups. It's gonna make you run, you know, probably run another mile. Like, you know, work on your form a little bit better. These are the kind of things that need to be told to you, because the guy you just fought, you didn't win that. You didn't stop him. You didn't knock him out. You didn't knock him down. We saw a point when you got hurt, but you didn't win that unanimously. He's there to be hit. You know, those things kind of speak a story, or provide a story to me when I'm looking at, okay, and I have my expectations. They're just like that guy, Paul Butler. Paul Butler, he had a common denominator with that guy, Emmanuel Rodriguez. Emmanuel Rodriguez stopped him. Yes, true indeed. But we also went and see Emmanuel Rodriguez go and stop my guy, Antonio Russell, the middle Russell brother right now. So that led me to believe, like, man, if he could do that to Emmanuel Rodriguez did that to Paul Butler. Paul Butler won the belt, and Naoya stopped him in the 11th. That, you know, that's a story. That tells you something. That gives you, like, okay, what am I gonna be looking at? Because you can undermine and say, oh, he hasn't fought anybody great, even though he fought Nonito Donaire twice. You know, even though he did, but with him stopping Emmanuel Rodriguez to the body, and me seeing what Emmanuel Rodriguez was able to do with 2 other guys, you can't discount that. You see where I'm going with this?
Oh, of course. I agree with you 100%.
That's what I see. These are the things that I look at, like, because I'm not just gonna blindly get on the bandwagon. I'm gonna get back in the lab. I'm gonna go look at some numbers, and I'm gonna say, oh, just like when fights happen, and I'm looking at the fight, and you see me when I be scoring them round by round, and sometimes I be calling it. I be like, man, up, he about to do this, he about to. But when I'm looking at it round by round, and then when the fight is over, most of the time I'm right with at least one of the judges as far as my scoring. But then when I go back and look at Compubox, I'm like, yes, this guy, okay, he led in the power punch connect percentages. That stuff means something. You can't just be out there on your stick. Yes, you need to be effective with your stick, which we said that Naoya Inoue, he's up there with as far as jabs. He's leading in jabs and connect percentages. He's one of the leading guys in jabs, but also in the power punch connect percentages. And anytime you get up around 40%, 44%, that tells a story, and that pretty much dictates who dominates the fight. A la why you see what you see with Tank. He don't throw that many punches. He don't throw that many. He's leading in the fewest power punches, but he's leading in power punch connect rates. That tells the story. That's how you get the job done. The numbers don't lie. And that's why they got Naoya at #1. See, these are what the people that the analysts, that's what they do. They look at these numbers, they crunch these numbers, and they say, and this is how they come up with a lot of this stuff. Yes, you also have the styles make fights. When you have certain styles, like you would think Canelo, being the great that he was, going up against a Bivol, you know, maybe people might not have thought that fight, the turnout in that fight ends the way it ends. But if you were looking at the numbers, you would know oh man, this might not be, this is not a cherry pick for Canelo. Oh man, he might be going up against. See, the people who look and crunch the numbers and get paid money for doing this, they know that. That's how they give their predictions, and this is how they actually, I believe this is probably how they come up with some of the odds and the betting odds and how they fix them like that, because they look at these numbers. We tend to throw these numbers out the window and say, oh no man, he's from America. Oh no man, he's not from here. Oh man, that's my guy, or I trained with him, or that's my friend, or I had him on for an interview. None of that has to do with what these guys are doing in the ring. That's where you gotta do that body work.
Right, exactly.
And that's
another thing too. Naoya is such a devastating puncher with both hands. It doesn't leave a lot of room for error by his opponents, because this man hurts you with either hand, and then once he hurts you, he's so strong that he can hurt you again with either hand, upstairs or downstairs. So I often say, and I will say it again, he just shows the ability that he's just a complete fighter. And if he is to lose, it's gonna take somebody that fights in a bigger weight class than he is. He is just such a dominant fighter up until the point right now that it's hard for me to go against him, because every time he moves up and increases his level of competition at a heavier weight, he always prevails. So him moving up, meeting Fulton, who is not, okay, Fulton is the champion, but he does not display invincibility. So he's gonna be hit. The story is, can he weather the punishment that Inoue is going to put on him? The key to his victory is that he's got to be able to sustain the punching power that Inoue possesses. If he's able to be hurt by Inoue, it's going to be a long night for him, because I don't know how he's going to pull off this complete boxing exhibition if he's on the run. And if you on the run as a champion, it don't fare well on the scorecard. So he's gonna have to deliver something that I don't know if he's able to do it against such a puncher like Inoue, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they say pressure busts pipes, and he does have a chance, because it's always, it's always something where styles, like I guess one of the biggest, or one of the most glaring fights was the I think it was the Mayorga versus Vernon Forrest, type deal. Whereas you wouldn't think, 1,000 times, or like a Shane Mosley versus a Vernon Forrest, you wouldn't think 1,000 times that just this style just has your number. He would just have to have Naoya Inoue's number, or they would have to come up with some kind of strategy. And and I also sent you an interview, or we were sitting there watching it when when you came over. We were sitting there watching it, and remember, we was waiting for the clips to where when people speak about Fulton, they're gonna actually say, okay, they're gonna give us something as far as what they see. And it's, oh no man, I trained them like, I trained with them, and I've seen them do, but it's nothing concrete that they can say, okay, what is it gonna be? Is it gonna be the footwork? Is it going to be the angles? Is it going to be, his defensive prowess? Is it going to be, we never get that. We just get the, basically that's my homie, so I'm rolling with it. And see, that's why I'm harping on this. I want Fulton to do his best, and I want the best man to win. It's just, I'm not going to buy into the hoopla and just saying, oh man, he's the home guy from Philly, or he's from America. No, we can't do that, because we see that's not always the case. You want, you would want your guy, or you would want the U.S. guy to win or whatever. But like in boxing, none of that matters when it comes to inside the ring. You know what I'm saying? None of it matters. Numbers do matter. And I was sitting here looking at some things, and like I said, Inoue is plus or minus 13.9. As far as him landing in opponents, that's the plus or minus. Shakur Stevenson and Dimitri Bivol are the only ones above him, with Shakur being the top dog. Average punches thrown around, Naoya is at 64. That's what he averaged. He averaged throwing 64. He's number 1 in total punches landed at 22. His percentage, meaning that, his percentage, like as far as him throwing and moving, he's at 34%. So he's landing at 34%. That's the total punches. So that means jabs and everything. And in jabs, he's throwing like 33 jabs around. And landing, he's number 2 at 8.5. In jab connect percentages, he's number 1 at 25%. That means 1 out of 4 is landing. And in power punches thrown, he's throwing 31 power punches. Power punches landed, he's number 2 behind Earl Spence, and we know what Earl Spence do at 13.7. Earl Spence is coming around at 15.7. And you wonder how, when they say Earl Spence breaks you down, these numbers are telling you that these guys with these kind of numbers, this is how they break you down. They're very efficient in the craft. The power punch connect percentage.
Especially when you have that punching power to go along with the connect percentage.
Right, it's not just the activity, it's the power behind it. It's telling you that, hey, not only am I active, but when I land them, I'm efficient. And power punch connect percentages, he's at 44%. He's 6% away from half. So every power punch that he's throwing, uppercuts, hooks, anything other than the jab, he's 6 points away from 50%, half and half. You can't undermine that. You can't go in there thinking, oh man, I'm just going, I'm going to lean on. That's your style don't lend you to believe that. So let's go to let me see. The other one I want to talk about was let me see. When it comes to the opponent. The opponent's total punches landed around the highest. Naoya Inoue is like number 4 at 9.4. And the fewest total punches landed per round, 9.4. That's where he at. He at 9.4. The highest, 6.9. So, and let me see, the power punches, 6.9. So the opponent's only landing power punches. He landing 6.9. Total punches, 9.4. So out of everything you got, you landing less than 10%. That's 1 out of 10. And power punches, you trying to get that off? That's not even 0.7. That's like 0.7. That's like 7%. That's like out of 100 punches, you only gonna land 7 of them things. And let me see. Total 20%. That means when you fight anyway, you only landing at 20%. When you look at let's in a comparison. Shakur Stevenson's at 13 and Dimitri Bivol is at 12. So we're talking about, and then Terrence Crawford is right behind Naoya at 20%. Earl Spence and Devin Haney are at 21%. Those numbers don't lie. That's why those guys are where they at. This is why these guys are up there. So 1 out of 5 punches you're gonna land on anyway. These are things you need to consider when people have this conversation about anyway. Which none of these categories, again, I'm telling you, none of these categories, not saying that Fulton isn't a good boxer. His name does not pop up in any of these categories, is what I'm saying. So, what we see with our eyes, the track record that they both have, we got to consider all these things when we evaluate these fights or when we having conversations around it. We can't just, have a bias and just be blind as to. And we got to kind of be responsible about the conversations that we having. Either way, it's what boxing needs because Fulton is the 2-belt champ. Inoue is daring to be great. They both legacy fighters and they both awesome boxers. You know what I'm saying? One representing Philly and one representing Japan. I wanted to revisit it, after I went into the lab and looked at these things, so, we can contribute to some of the things floating around about this because it's not being handled responsibly on a lot of these platforms, because of favoritism And, a lot of times, a lot of people have links as far as them wanting you to bet or them persuading you to bet. Hopefully the information that we talked about today will help you make a good choice, or at least add to your decisions when you either A, talk about this fight, or B, if anybody gonna even put some bread on it, or even in that realm, what to expect when you go into this fight and what you're looking for, because these numbers don't lie.
I'm looking, because of what you mentioned, Inoue's connect percentage. I expect Inoue to be ahead in this fight. And I see this fight getting to a point where Fulton, I believe, will need a knockout in order to win this fight, because of things you just said. His Compubox percentage as compared to Inoue. He thinks he's going to get around and box, but Inoue can go. And there's a point where he's going to dance around Inoue and think he's just going to outpoint him. I think he's going to get in trouble trying to do that. And he's going to, at some point, be drawn into a firefight. And that's going to be his downfall. I believe he will get hurt and will not survive. It could come later in the fight, or Inoue can surprise and hurt him early in the fight. And if he gets hurt, Inoue has that ability of moving in and stopping fighters. So he's going to have to fight the perfect fight against Inoue, and he's going to have to box, and be ahead of the scorecards. And I just believe that's going to be a difficult task for him. He believes he can do it. He's supposed to believe he can do it. His fans are supposed to believe he can do it. I'm skeptical if the fight is going to go exactly the way he's planning it.
Well, this is my take. This is my take on it. This is my take. And I like what you said, because you said this when it came to Devin, and how he was supposed to beat Kambosos, or how he was going to beat Loma. He was like, he got to do what it takes. He got to do what it took to get him there. And so to a certain extent, yes, you got to be smart as far as boxing, but I think that when it comes to the elite, sometimes it's the one who takes more risks. Now, it is a risk. It is a risk. Like, that's the rule. The meaning, the very essence of the word is risk. But I'll give you an example. A lot of people say that Devin doesn't have power. I don't believe that he don't have power. I'm like, well, he punches, all them punches. It's just like Michael Jordan, shooting 1,000 free throws. Where he's doing like 2,000, 3,000 punches. He has power. If he hits you, I believe that the difference is he's not willing to take risks. Or when he's on the inside, when he should be taking a risk, when he's his most powerful, he's also his most vulnerable. Meaning that when he's in a position to be able to hit you the hardest, he himself is in a vulnerable state to where if he get hit, it could be over. And I believe that the reason why he don't get as many knockouts is because he don't take risks. The difference is between him and somebody like Tank. Tank will take risks. He knows that, yes, he has a chin and he can afford to be able to get hit. But if it's like in the game, they say the shots you don't take, you definitely can't make. Right. So it's easier said than done, especially when you're dealing with a killer. But I believe he has to be opportunistic. I believe that if it's a shot there to take, he has to take it, because to me, trying to outbox and run around, one, it's not going to lend yourself to the scorecard, because you're not as accurate as him. You're not as efficient as him. People that are more accurate and more efficient didn't land as him. You had somebody like Figueroa in the ring where he gets hit the most, and you was not as accurate with him. So you're dealing with a different monster in this situation. No pun intended. So my key to Fulton's victory is, yeah, you can do all that boxing, but I'm telling you, when you got that man lined up and he's in your crosshairs, you got to pull the trigger. and you gonna have to sit down on some shit, you know what I'm saying, a couple times. You gonna have to dig to that body, you know, a couple times, and you're gonna have to take risks. Yes, you're gonna be vulnerable, but to me, that's gonna be the separator. And if you're not gonna take no risk, it might be a walk in the park, you know, for Inoue. You know, I believe that, you know, you can be a formidable opponent, but I don't see it going no other way, because you can try to outbox and evade and elude. The judge is not gonna look at it like that. They're gonna look at it like, oh, well, in ring generalship, you lost. Well, when you did punch, he made you miss. So you weren't effective, your effective punching wasn't there. He was able to hit you at will. So your defense, you lost in that. So on the scorecards, it's gonna be lopsided, you know, because I don't really see Fulton being in a position body-wise or size-wise to be able to lean and use the big man versus the little man, because people trying to use that analogy. The great big man beats the great little man. I'm like, yeah, you can say that, but it's not really that, like, it's not really that big of a size difference. You know what I'm saying? And then when we was watching him the other day when you came over here, we were looking at his legs. His legs is solid. And we already seen in his own mouth his walk around weight. So he's not, the size difference isn't there. I think that it's gonna have to be risk. You're gonna have to take some risk in that. And people who don't take risk, no risk, no reward. It's like the onside kick at the beginning of the game. You know, it's like, you know, the fake punt. Like, you're gonna have to do some of that in this boxing match. And if you don't, to me, it's just, you know, it's just you're gonna be a good formidable opponent for as long as the fight lasts. And that's my final take on it. You know, I hope the best man win. But that's my key, and that's what I would be telling Fultons. Like, look, man, sometimes you have to bite down over there in London. They say bite down on your gum shield. You know what I'm saying? You have to buckle your chin strap. You know what I'm saying? And you're gonna have to take a risk against this guy. You have to try to sit down on something and try to hurt him. You know what I'm saying? Nonito, he did a good job, but that also showed that with a broken orbital bone, you know, Naoya was able to finish. And came back.
Yeah, and Naoya was still totally ahead in the fight. And then he hit Donaire, and it was a delayed reaction because the punch to the body was that devastating that Donaire was smart enough to say, you know what, I'm going to take a knee. I'm going to put an extra 8 seconds on this. Then I'm going to get up. He did not have to take that knee when he got hit. But being smart, he knew that another 8 seconds could be the difference between this fight being ended in that round or him taking a seat, coming out for another round. So that delayed reaction, he was well aware of what he was doing. And to me, that was being smart. By taking that knee, it allowed him to continue to fight some more.
Yeah, Fundora did that. Fundora did that against Lubin, because if he didn't do that against Lubin, he said he felt that entourage. He took that knee, gathered himself, and a lot of fighters make that mistake thinking, oh man, that machismo kick in. It's like you want to get up and show you're not hurt, but you're not fully recuperated and your faculties aren't in order, and you take on more punishment, and that's really the end at that point. So yeah, that is smart. And the ones with the high IQ, man, they use everything to their advantage. Clinching, we didn't talk about that either. Clinching, you know, Fulton needed to be able to do that. Like, he's a boxer, but hey, tie him up. You know, he's gonna have to, like, you're gonna have to go in that toolbox, you know what I'm saying, and bring everything out, take risks, you know, and we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it had been a couple days, so I figured, you know, I wanted to get back with you, man, so we can keep the conversation going. A lot of people, you know, they love this conversation. I actually enjoy it. It forced me to be able to do some homework too, so. And it forced me to look up some other things about some other boxers and looking at these numbers, man, to add to my repertoire. Normally I do it before and after the fights, but I'm gonna start coming back over and doing these numbers again in the analysis part, you know, because I hear I got new information about Benavidez and some of these stuff. His stats are a little bit better than what I thought as far as the numbers. Benavidez, so it's actually changing a couple things in my mind as far as stat wise, as far as how I was looking at him and Plant, you know. But you know, I'm looking forward to this fight, man. It's on the 7th. So, it's a little ways away, but as I get more things, I'll send it to you, man, and I'll reach out to you and get your opinion on it, because, I know that's your guy.
All right, I really appreciate it.
All right, well, you have a good evening, and I'll get with you later on.
Okay, Mike, and you have a good one also.
All right, have a good one. Peace. Yeah, that was my old head, man. My old head K, man. He loves some Naoya Inoue, and I'm actually growing a lot to appreciate him too. I just wanted to contribute to the responsibility aspect of the conversation surrounding this fight, because I think that a lot of people aren't handling it properly. A lot of people are emotional about it, and again, this bodywork boxing, we don't take things for face value. We do that body work.